I'm hearing a lot of talk about how Texas won't be able to contend in their first year in the SEC. And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely false. The Longhorns are loaded once again this season, and not only will they compete in the SEC, they will have a great opportunity to make the SEC championship in their first year, and they should return to the college football playoff for the second year in a row. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. Ready to break down the Texas Longhorns, their schedule, their record for this upcoming season. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our exclusive expert picks. The earlier you sign up for those picks, guys, the better. We are beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years. We will make it 7 by the end of this year. So if you want some of the best picks in the country for one of the lowest prices in the country with some of the best customer service in the entire country, better than any other handicapper out there, we can guarantee you this is the place for you. So go sign up. The link, again, down in the description below over on thegridironexpert.com, as well as everything else there for you to become a member of our GE Nation. So Texas, man, what a year in 2023. Steve Sarkisian finally breaks through in Austin, leads the Longhorns to the college football playoff. They go 12-2. They win the Big 12 in their final year in the conference, and they was one play away. They were one play away from beating Washington. Literally came down to the final play of the game for playing in the national championship against Michigan. We're so close. This year, though, they return loads of talent from that squad. Texas is the only team from last year's college football playoff to retain their head coach. Saban's gone, Harbaugh's gone, DeBoer's gone from Washington. So Texas has the continuity there, and they've got the talent as well, despite the move to arguably the toughest conference in the nation. Let's take a look at their offense. 35.8 points per game. That's what they averaged last year. Over 280 passing yards per game, nearly 200 rushing yards per game. They were pretty dang good. Now 7 starters are back, led by Quinn Ewers, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, who threw for over 3,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And his stats would have been even better had he not gotten injured for a few weeks early in 2023. If he does go down, though, again, for whatever reason, Arch Manning is right behind him. And I think he is more than capable of leading the charge and continuing to thrive with this Texas team. Outside of the quarterback position, though, one of the best quarterback rooms in the nation, C.J. Baxter returns at running back. Over 650 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns last year, and he wasn't even the leading back for the Longhorns. And then you got people that go, well, they lose all top 5 of their pass catchers. They lose a lot of their top wide receiver threats, and that is true. But Sarkisian went out and addressed this in the transfer portal. They had Silas Bolden in from Oregon State. They had Isaiah Bond and Amari Niblack both in from Alabama. They've got loads of talent at the wide receiver and just pass-catching position in a whole. And then the offensive line has 123 combined starts, 4 starters back from last season, one of the best offensive lines in the nation. This offense will be fantastic once again, and I would expect them to put up similar numbers to what we saw in 2023. Defensively, the Longhorns also extremely strong. Yes, they lose a handful of key starters off the NFL, but 8 starters are back from a unit that allowed just 18.9 points per game and only 337 yards per game, 82 of which were on the ground. So secondary, needs some work, but that rushing defense, stingy as all get out, man. 6 of their top 8 tacklers return, led by Anthony Hill at linebacker. Ethan Burke returns at defensive end, had 5.5 sacks last year. Then they went out and added Trey Moore from UTSA, who was dominant with the Roadrunners, had 104 tackles and 22 sacks in 2 years with the Roadrunners. So you've got a very strong defensive line, very strong linebacking core. And yes, the secondary does need some work. They gave up over 250 passing yards per game last year. Well, they add in Andrew Makuba from Clemson. They add in Javion Cole from San Jose State. This is a much improved Texas secondary, an overall improved defense as a whole. They weren't even that bad last year, and they've got a pretty dang good schedule in their first year in the SEC to make a run towards a title and make a run towards another college football playoff berth. You take a look at what Texas is up against. Here's the first thing I notice. First year in the SEC, and they avoid Ole Miss, LSU, Missouri, and Alabama. 4 of their 8 conference games are against teams that had a losing record last year. Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Florida, Arkansas, pretty favorable games there. Their toughest games, they've got 4 tough games really, if you're Texas. 4 games that will define your season. Michigan, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Texas A&M at the end of the year. That's it. It's 4 games, a third of your schedule. And you know what the beauty of that is? 2 of them are at home. One's at a neutral site. Only one is a true road game. Talk about a great setup for the Longhorns in their first year in the conference. I'm sure Oklahoma was pretty upset about that, considering what the Sooners are going to have to face. But you take a look at what Texas is up against. They will beat Colorado State, and they will beat Michigan. Tough game number 1. They're going to win it. And I actually feel pretty confident in this take. First off, Michigan has got a lot of stuff going on right now. I think the hammer is about to be dropped on them with the whole Connor Stallion scandal. But that's a story for another time. If you're looking at what just is going to happen on the field, you've got a Michigan team that loses almost everything from last year's national title squad. They lose their quarterback, they lose their coach, they lose their running back, they lose their pass catchers, they lose the majority of their offensive line, they lose tons on defense. And while, yes, the Wolverines are going to have a very strong defense once again, I'm not worried about that. It's going to be a very good defense. Texas arguably owns the edge in every aspect of this game with the exception of home field advantage. The Longhorns absolutely own the offensive edge. You could argue that the Longhorns own the defensive edge, but if you go, no, it's Michigan, and I think I'd probably lightly lean Michigan defensively. Texas isn't that much farther behind, and that Texas defense, which is pretty dang good, I think is going to do pretty well against a Michigan team that's probably going to be starting Alex Orji in just his second career start. So getting it to Michigan early in the year with all these changes that the Wolverines are going through is very beneficial for Texas. The Longhorns are the much better team on paper right now, much better team on the field right now. This team was able to win in Tuscaloosa by 10 points last year. They're not afraid of tough environments or anything like that. The big house will be rocking, but Texas is going to get the win. They're 2-0. They will take down Michigan. What a win for Steve Sarkisian's squad. They will beat UTSA, they will beat ULM, they will beat Mississippi State. So just like that, they are 5-0. Those 3 games all coming at home should be blowout victories for Texas. And the Bulldogs are going to be the first conference game for Texas. Coming out of that bye week, they got Oklahoma in Dallas. So that's big game number 2. And a revenge game for Texas. The last year they lost, their only regular season loss last year was to Oklahoma. Their final meeting as Big 12 members, the Red River Shootout, they lost 34-30. Now, here's the thing with Oklahoma. They've got a lot of talent. Young quarterback in Jackson Arnold, but Texas owns the edge there with Quinn Ewers. They've got great skill position players that I think will be able to hang with Texas, no doubt about it. And the Sooners' defense is going to be one of the best, not just in the SEC, but in the entire country. But my biggest concern for Oklahoma is their offensive line. How quickly do all the newcomers gel? The Sooners lost everybody from last year's offensive line. They're replacing them with a lot of transfers, talented transfers, but how quickly do they gel and how quickly do they fare against a very talented, physical Texas defensive line? That battle in the trenches. Who's going to win it? Who can win at the line of scrimmage? That edge goes to Texas, who owns the edge, both offensive line and defensive line. The Longhorns, with revenge on their mind, take down Oklahoma. They are 6-0, 2-0 in conference play. So as if that Oklahoma game wasn't big enough because it was a rivalry, it's big enough because it's their first meeting as SEC members. So extra stakes added to the Red River Shootout. And then you've got Georgia. What a game. This is a potential top 5 showdown in Austin on October 19th. And this is a high-pressure game for Texas. I talked about this in our Georgia video. This feels like a more pressure game for Texas than it does Georgia. Georgia's sitting back there like, look, we're the kings of the SEC, man. Technically, Alabama is because they won it last year, but everybody knows Georgia's the favorite this year. And you got Texas coming in here trying to prove that they belong. You got Texas coming in here saying, we want to try to dethrone the king in our first year there. And Georgia's like, well, have at it. Give it your best shot. And I don't think the Longhorns can do it. This Georgia team, guys, they are loaded from top to bottom. The great quarterback battle between Carson Beck of Georgia, Quinn Ewers of Texas. Both great defenses, but Georgia owning that defensive edge, no doubt about it. And the offense can certainly hang with Texas. The Bulldogs certainly aren't afraid to play in any sort of environment, whether it's home, road, or neutral. It's going to be close, but give me the Bulldogs still a little bit too more physical and kind of a welcome to the league moment for Texas. This won't be a blowout by any means, but it's going to be Georgia flexing their muscles saying, hey, this is still our league as of right now. So Georgia gets the win. Texas takes their first loss of the year. They will cruise past Vanderbilt, though. What a great opportunity to bounce back. They cruise past Vandy. Coming out of the bye week, I think they cruise past Florida. Off a week of rest, a Florida team that is going to be coming off a game against Georgia, so maybe a little bit beat up after that game. A Gators team that has talent but faces the most difficult schedule in the entire country. You can't help but wonder what the mindset of the Gators will be and honestly how physical the Gators will be after such a brutal schedule and now getting them later in the year. But at home, off that week of rest, they will beat the Gators, no doubt about that. They will beat Arkansas on November 16th. I love this matchup. I love this rivalry. You know, Arkansas, Texas, former Southwest Conference rivals. This will mark the first conference game between the Razorbacks and the Longhorns since 1991, when both were still members of the Southwest Conference before Arkansas bolted for the SEC. Last time Texas came to Fayetteville, they got destroyed, lost 40-21 to the Razorbacks. I think Arkansas rushed for over 300 yards in that game. It's not going to be the case this year. I think Steve Sarkisian's still feeling the sting from that game a little bit, especially from some of the comments made at SEC Media Days. I do believe that Texas obviously is the better team from top to bottom. I do believe Arkansas will improve on both sides of the ball after a very disappointing season last year. And I believe Fayetteville's rocking for this game. But they simply are not going to have enough to take down this Texas team that, at this point in the year, is fighting for an SEC title berth, a playoff berth, while Arkansas might be out of bowl contention at this point, might have an interim coach at this point, who knows, but at the best, it's just barely fighting for bowl eligibility. Texas, way more to play for, much better team, revenge on their mind. They cruise past the Razorbacks, and they cruise past Kentucky at home on Senior Day. The Wildcats, solid team, no doubt about that. Will be another bowl team under Mark Stoops, but nowhere near enough to hang with Texas or beat them, especially in Austin. So all that being said, Texas, they're 10-1. They're going into their final game at Texas A&M. You win this game, you pretty much clinch yourself a spot in the SEC Championship, which clinches you a spot in the college football playoff. You lose that game to A&M, you probably still get in to the playoff with a 10-2 team, but maybe you don't make the SEC Championship. So a lot riding on this big rivalry game, which for me is one of the most anticipated games of the season. Seeing this rivalry renewed between the Aggies and the Longhorns. Their first meeting since 2011. Where Texas won 27-25 in College Station. And I think Texas beats the Aggies again. I think in their first meeting in well over a decade, in a game that's going to be so electric to watch, the 12th man, College Station, Kyle Field will be rocking. It's going to be an amazing atmosphere. Texas gets the job done. Why? Because while the Aggies do have a lot of talent and they're going to be pretty solid, they're still in year one under Mike Elko. They're going to go through a handful of growing pains and learning curves with Elko now at a much more difficult school and difficult conference at A&M. Pretty big upgrade from Duke. But you look at the guys on the field as well. Not only is Texas going to be playing for more entering this game, I still like their offense over the Aggies, despite the talent that A&M does have coming back. And I believe both defenses, while solid, Texas owns that slight edge. A&M has a few questions in the back seven. Linebacking core is not bad, but still a few questions there. Secondary, probably the biggest concern for the Aggies. A&M's got it at all three levels. I do expect that secondary to improve. So while the atmosphere is going to be tough, Texas is going to have plenty of their faithful there. It's an in-state rivalry game. There's going to be plenty of orange in that stadium. The Longhorns come out in a close one to finish the year at 11-1 in their first year in the conference. Don't come out here and say Texas can't compete in their first year in the SEC. They absolutely can. And maybe they are benefiting from a pretty nice schedule. Maybe if they had, Oklahoma's schedule, where the Sooners are going to have to play Missouri and Alabama and LSU, maybe things will be a little bit different. But shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's not that, Texas had nothing to do with that, neither did Oklahoma. They're going to play the schedule you're dealt. The Longhorns got a pretty dang good one. The Longhorns have a fantastic coach. They've got a loaded team from a team that, again, was one play away from the national championship last year. They will find themselves in the SEC championship with this record. More than likely a rematch against Georgia. Regardless of what that outcome is in Atlanta, the Longhorns will be back in the college football playoff. $1 million question now is, can they go win the whole dang thing? So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of those exclusive expert picks. The earlier you sign up for those, the better it's going to be for you. Some of the best picks in the country for one of the lowest prices in the country. Again, we're beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years. So go sign up for those today. Become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.